Ministers, I'm happy to be here this evening to speak, I think, on this, what is a silent epidemic, and it has been prevalent in Ireland, not just recently, it has been prevalent for many generations, in fact. And I think when we speak about domestic violence, we need to contextualise it to a degree. It is abusive relationships, taking many different forms, the physical abuse of hitting, pushing, denying medical care, the emotional abuse, manipulation, threats, name-calling, sexual abuse, rape, sexual assault, pressuring a person to have sex, and image sharing, as has been discussed, and economic abuse also, the withholding of funds and putting someone in debt, and deliberate neglect. And I think one of the areas that we should look at in the Dáil this year is the issue of the school food programme. And I think a lot of schools are doing that, and it provides a very necessary function for children who are suffering neglect in their family homes. All of these encompass coercive control, predominantly against women, but men suffer too in both heterosexual and homosexual relationships, with significant emotional damage occurring and resulting for victims. And what is the nature of domestic violence? Is it nature or nurture? Can we look for it in our own environment? Is it come from our families? Is it something that we see? And who are the victims? We know they are wives, they're also partners, they're children, and they are adolescents. And in many cases, those that have been subjected to domestic violence may well find in their own lives that they bring it further into future relationships. There's significant triggers too, which I think people in that situation would talk about: alcohol, other addictions, unemployment, jealousy, anxiety, suppressed rage, some personality disorders, social media-related jealousy, which is a new phenomenon, and I would also highlight gambling. And online gambling has meant, the silent epidemic. Now there's now gambling, which is bringing more and more financial hardship, which in itself brings more domestic pressure. And the sufferer's state of mind, the fear that they have, their own esteem issues, that they feel they are not worthy to counter somebody who is predating upon them in this way, their shame, their financial insecurity, their vulnerability, and the previous psychological traumas that they may have suffered, which allow them to continue to suffer into the future and ensure that they will never see new and genuine opportunity come their way. Ireland is only 1/3 of the recommended capacity of refuges, which has been spoken about here today. And many are communal, and that is therefore unsuitable in the context of a pandemic. And what role can the state play in terms of refuges? Yes. Family law supports? Yes. We applaud the Garda for the ongoing operations that they are doing. And I would like to see an increase in banning orders, certainly. But how does Pulse record domestic violence? And should a register of offenders be compiled? I would say it should. If we're going to have a sex offenders register, I think we should have a domestic violence register also. Because we know that people who basically break the law in this way will probably do it into the future, and they will take it from one relationship to another relationship, quite likely. And domestic violence, as we know, has risen as a result of COVID. 15% of women and 6% in Ireland, of men in Ireland, have experienced severe domestic violence from a partner, and that most women in Ireland were intentionally killed by a current or former intimate partner is a source of concern. Some of the deputies have spoken about Safe Ireland and the results of their recent surveys, and I think no harm just to briefly state them again. 3,450 women and 589 men, children, contacted a domestic violence service for the very first time in recent months. On average, at least 1,970 women and 411 children receive support from a domestic violence service every month. Every month. 33,941 helpline calls were answered. That's an average of 184 calls a day. We assume they're not all coming from the same households. So that's at least 150 households every day looking for help. On average, 191 women and 288 children were living in domestic violence accommodation each month. And we know they want to get out of it, and we know they want to have opportunity to move on. 1,350 requests for refuge could not be met due to a lack of space. Services have worked tirelessly to create and find accommodation in the community. So the numbers are rising, and this present lockdown, as has been discussed, is a very, very difficult time for so many. So this all serves to highlight what is a problem in Ireland today. It signals the personal stress in people's lives, and it signals the stress in our system and the state's response to deal with it. So could I maybe offer a couple of things in terms of initiatives to combat domestic abuse? As I say, an offenders register. I think that, I know legally it may be difficult, but I don't see, as I say, if somebody has abused and if somebody has assaulted a partner in their home, I think that should be recorded publicly, and people need to have the idea that this might be in the public domain. A pro-arrest policy continuation. I think absolutely, if their guards in this present climate are called out to a door, they should merely seek to arrest if there's been a significant case of assault there. They should not return a woman into that situation, knowing the consequences of lockdown and that someone has nowhere to go to vent frustration. The protection of women across all sectors on the road to recovery. From social housing protection to education, and we must find education, to access to healthcare and to the criminal justice system. And I think we need, as I said, a specific law, and I want to see that legislation enacted in terms of the sharing of images without consent. That's basically it, but look, I think I would reiterate what the other deputies have said here. And I think most importantly what needs to be recognised about domestic violence, it is a cowardly thing. It is done by people with little esteem to people who may be suffering esteem. I think education is a way, and certainly social services and integration is a way, but the state must give support, and we must do more to shine a light into this area and to show people that they are not alone, and also to show them that the state can create future opportunity outside of those relationships that they may presently have.